All right, we are here on Patriots No Huddle, new podcast with Derek Havens, Mike Diabate, Steve Balestrieri here, talking to you about really the first round of the Patriots 2025 draft. Guys, I feel like we've been talking about bacon recipes, and now we finally have it here, and excited to jump off with you guys. Brought to you by PatsFans.com. Please do subscribe to us on our Patriots No Huddle YouTube channel, and as well as subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in those rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. So, gentlemen, let's jump into it. I mean, fun draft. I felt like it went pretty much chalk. And we'll go right into it. Steve, I usually go to you, but I'm going to go to Mike first. Mike, thoughts on the Patriots' first round pick, and then we'll get into the rest of the draft here too.
Well, bottom line, Derek, the New England Patriots had a big void coming into this draft. They chose to use that number 4 pick in order to be able to fill it. And on that basis, it's really difficult to argue against this pick. Look, Will Campbell is arguably the best offensive lineman in this draft class. I think he has the potential to do that. My particular opinion is I believe he's going to prove that in short order, but
I agree.
all that has to be proved on the field. I mean, obviously, that is still something that is a matter of argument, a matter of conjecture. But
TBD.
when you look at what he brings to the table, not only a physical, very eager offensive lineman to get in there and to mix it up. He's a tenacious run blocker. That's where he is at his best. But he also plays with an agility and an athleticism that really is remarkable for a guy his size in terms of lending his wisdom and counsel, so to speak, and his on-field prowess to pass protection. So he's got all the intangibles to be one of the better tackles in the league in short order in a couple of years. I understand that the arm length is still going to come up. You see it all over social media. I saw as many pictures of T-Rexes last night as I did see a picture of Will Campbell, which I think is unfortunate. But look, bottom line, Mike Vrabel, I think, said it best when we spoke to him shortly after
Bingo.
he was when he was drafted. He said that, look, this kid has got the intangibles, he's got the football IQ to be able to not only compensate for his deficiencies, but also find success through them in a limited amount of time. And I think that's what really drew the New England Patriots to Will Campbell in this situation, especially Mike Vrabel. And last but certainly not least, Derek, don't forget, this team had a void when David Andrews left this line. You need high character, high quality guys that are going to be in there to provide leadership. Will Campbell fits that bill to a T. I don't think there's anyone that can say that's a shortcoming of his. This kid is a natural born leader. His teammates gravitate toward him. His coaches love him. I really don't see a downside with this pick. I think the New England Patriots had a need, and they nailed it with Will Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about Will Campbell for almost a year now. I mean, there was a lot of tackles that were projected. Obviously, it's always different from a year to year, difference. But we literally have talked about Will Campbell for a while now. Seems like it screamed Mike Vrabel to me. It to me, it was not a surprise. Any Patriots fan that has reservations, I can kind of understand some of those, but at the same time. At the same time, to me, Vrabel talked about, the kind of guys that he wants in his locker room, from his initial press conference with the Patriots. He wants physical, tough, smart, violent players. Will Campbell is that to an absolute T, and this is not a surprise. I mean, to maybe some, it's disappointing. Maybe it's not the shiny toy of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, and I can understand why you would have an allure to those players. But to me, this is the guy that the Patriots need to get, and I will go to Steve after this, of course. But you're talking about a guy who literally said he will fight and die for his quarterback. And that's the kind of guy I want from my franchise quarterback. Steve, what are your thoughts on Will Campbell?
Well, and I know Mike is always, politically correct with the way he says stuff. Where he said it's unfortunate, and let's call it what it is. It's patently stupid at this
Yes.
point, okay? Because let's turn the clocks back, shall we, to before, the combine in Indy, and just turn the clock back 3 years and watch this kid at left tackle for 3 years and tell me he can't play left tackle. This,
3 years
and
in
I
the
get
Steve,
the
3 years in the
measurable-
SEC and starting as a true freshman. I mean, that's
Yeah.
nothing to sneeze at. Okay.
Yeah, and watch this kid over 3 solid years in the SEC playing against guys who are already in the NFL or
Correct.
soon to be, and tell me he didn't hold his own incredibly well there. And nobody ever mentioned, oh, he looks like he has short arms.
Yeah.
He looks like T-Rex out there. Nobody said that for 3 years. And then he gets, oh my God, he's an eighth of an inch short, excuse me.
Depending on what measurement you got, because apparently there was 3 different ones. Apparently, maybe he was just doing just pull-ups and just let his arms hang and stretch them out a little bit.
I mean, come on. This has gotten so bad.
Of course.
And, watch the tape. The tape don't lie. You can have all these measurables, but if you can't play football, guess what? You're going to be out of the league sooner than later. This kid can play. We've known that all along, and it gets to the point of oversaturation. And, I was seeing all the T-Rex arm things last night, and then some radio guys were talking about, well, if it was just, if there wasn't that uncertainty, what's uncertain about this guy being able to play? There's none. And, if you're saying, hey, well, I like so-and-so guy better, fine. That's fine. That's your opinion. But to sit there and say this guy can't play, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
And we've seen this, nonstop since Indy. And, people are always fed this steady diet of negativity in this town, which we all know, right? And, now they repeat it, and it sounds uneducated. Oh, his arms are an eighth of an inch short. He can't play. Well, watch the tape. And, some of the guys that were drafted really high last night, he more than held his own against them. So, and like you said, Derek, if Vrabel's looking for a certain type of players and he checks all those blocks, I mean, call it what it is. This has gotten to the point of stupidity now.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, look,
I
think the first,
and it was the worst kept secret.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Since the Patriots season ended, Will Campbell coming to New England is the worst kept secret. I mean, all spring we've been talking about. Whoops, what happened to Mike?
It's all right. He's going to readjust here.
Oh, okay. But anyway, we've been talking about different scenarios because it's great for conversation. But
Sure.
Let's call it what it is. I mean, this guy, we all kind of knew he was coming to New England, and it's not a sexy pick, and everyone keeps saying he's not Joe Alt. Well, we don't know that yet.
Yep.
He might. There he is. Your camera went haywire there for a second.
Yeah, exactly. First day, the new guy breaks the camera. I mean, come on. This is terrible. This is awful. You guys are probably like on the phone. Yep. All right. Next. Get them.
Yeah.
Steve and I are both old enough to remember the Gong Show. I'm waiting for Chuck to come out and just send me to the back or wherever they sent those guys.
Yeah.
No, it's me. But to me,
JJ
guys,
the
this was the pick from literally from months ago, and it kind of went chalk. And look, I understand that there are Patriots fans again that wanted Travis Hunter, that wanted Abdul Carter. I love both those players too. They both scare me for different reasons, but at the same time, Will Campbell made the most sense. And one of my favorite guys and friend of the show, Fred Kirsch, always says this thing, which is don't listen, don't focus on what they say. Listen to what they kind of do. And to me, this is one of those things where they addressed right tackle. They have Mike Onwenu at right guard. They signed Garrett Bradbury at center. Oh, left guard, still a question mark, to be determined. There's a lot of guys there, whether it's Layden Robinson, Cole Strange, City So, Jake Andrews, all those guys are there. Left tackle, still a question mark. They've addressed so many other positions. They're not going to fill everything with the team with this many holes. They're not going to go ahead and address everything in one offseason. It's impossible. So for me, Will Campbell is a guy that wants to go ahead and plays with the hard nose, and it kind of seems like the kind of guy that Vrabel wants to build a culture with. And I think he's a pillar player. Am I 100% sold on him as a tackle? Probably not, but I think it's close. And I mean, we can circumcise the mosquito, as Mike Felger would say, with the arm length, but he's still 6'6", 315.
Yeah.
He still played over 60 games again in the SEC. So it's not like it's something that we're projecting that much. Mike, do you have any concerns with Campbell? But to me, I think he's the starting left tackle on day one for the Patriots.
Yeah, I really don't have any concerns. Any concerns that I might have had last night were quelled when I listened to Mike Vrabel at the podium. He laid out the case very clearly, and I thought he made a very good one. Look, the manner in which this kid plays the left tackle position is where he's comfortable. He leans in on pass protection. He'll drop his shoulder and he'll anchor his lower body in order to be able to get in there and to run block. So he knows the nuances of playing on the left side. And look, you want to talk about dropbacks, which is where the New England Patriots, I believe, are going to try to focus a lot of their energy this year on improving their offense. He played more drop back snaps than anyone in college football last year. So Will Campbell has the ability to be able to do this, to essentially block for a team that wants to throw the ball 40 to 50 times a game if he really want to. I do believe that this kid has all the intangibles. He's coming out of a pro system at LSU. He's used to the type of style that this team is going to employ. And look, the intangibles count for a whole lot. There's high football IQ. There's leadership there that he's going to provide on the field that I think is going to end up really helping to buoy his chances of getting this job shorter in a short span. And I do believe he will be the starting left tackle here in New England right out of the gate. And look, he's going to get beat, folks. There are going to be times out there where you're going to see him get beat by a more agile defender. He's a rookie. Those things happen. I think Patriots fans need to keep things in perspective and realize that they haven't had a guy in so long that is able to say that his learning ability and his football IQ is ahead of the scheme of where he is right now. Pats haven't had that type of left tackle in a long time, since prime Trent Brown. I look for that in Will Campbell this time around. I think the Patriots got a good one, and I think they're going to continue to show that on the field. And right now, the happiest guy in that Patriots locker room should be Drake May. He's got a blindside protector.
And he said he loved him already after he saw his interview. And, another thing in his favor is he knocked Mike Vrabel on his ass last week.
Yeah. Not an easy task. Mike doesn't let those up very easily. I can tell you, he doesn't put pads on symbolically. Mike still thinks he's going to be able to get in there and mix it up with the young guys, and feels he's going to win those battles each and every time. So in order for you to do that, it says a lot.
I'll bet you a dollar to a dime, right, that Vrabel loves that. Because he wants those violent guys. And he got in there with the chest protector and he came at him, and Campbell gave him that 2-hand punch, knocked him flat on his butt. And, that's the kind of thing that coach loves. And, so.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to Todd and Joel, who have been, faithful listeners for a while now, and I want to give a shout out to them because as Todd said, he said he would die for Drake May, and you got to love that. And I agree with that. And same thing with Joel. I mean, you talk about putting shingles in your house, not flashy, but it's very much needed, and I totally agree. I think this is one of those things, guys, that just needed to happen. They got their left tackle. They had that. I understand people want the receiver, and I think the receiver could still come here on day 2, and I'm excited for that. But I also think that the foundation is important, and building these lines. Let's not forget, this left tackle position for the Patriots has been, it's no secret. It's been an issue for 5 years. I mean, even going back to Trent Brown in 2019 when they won their last Super Bowl. I mean, they had an issue there. They had to go ahead and fix it. This is a guy who I think can go ahead and address that line. I guess as we go just kind of around the horn here and talk about a couple different things, Steve, what are your thoughts going in? I guess we'll get to the second round here in a second. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here. Let's talk about just the first round in general. Biggest surprise to me was Shedeur Sanders not being drafted. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I think he can play, but I thought he was a little overrated. There was talks about him going 2, going 3, and then I thought the floor for him was going to be the Steelers at 21. Didn't take a quarterback. What are your thoughts on just the first round in general? A couple of surprises, but I thought most of it went the way we kind of foreseen it.
Yeah, I thought overall the first round kind of went the way we thought it would. I mean, Jacksonville moving up was a little bit of a surprise. Obviously, they fell in love with Travis Hunter, and there's a lot to love there. I mean, they have some holes offensively, defensively, and apparently they think he can play both ways. So kudos to them. I thought that, but he still went where we thought he would. Right? We thought he'd go second, and he did go second. It was just to a different team.
Yep.
Actually, the first 4 went exactly kind of like we thought it might go. So,
to me, the draft started at 5. I mean, the first 4 went exactly how we thought. Again, to your point, it wasn't the exact same team that we thought for 2.
Couple of minor surprises, but nothing major. I mean, I was a little surprised that the Broncos didn't take Omarion Hampton. I thought, all along
I thought that was the pick.
Yeah, I thought that was like a no-brainer, But
it makes sense. It makes sense that Harbaugh took him with the Chargers. I mean, that is a great fit.
He's gonna fit in very well there.
Yeah, I agree.
I think a lot of teams helped themselves in the first round, and I go back to what Daniel Jeremiah said before the draft started last night. Look, there's a lot of starters in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what a lot of teams got. They got starters in that first round. I mean, are there going to be like Hall of Fame players? That remains to be seen. It's usually somebody that comes out of nowhere, although, we think guys like Hunter and Abdul Carter may eventually get to that level. But I was going through the draft, and with each pick, I'm like, that's a good draft for that team. That's a good draft for these guys. I can't think of anything offhand from last night that when I heard it, I was like, oh man, what were they thinking about?
I was a little surprised of how much the just from a first round perspective, I'm a little surprised with how much the Jaguars gave up for Travis Hunter. I think that's a little bit of a gamble. Because
obviously that's one, obviously they really love this kid.
Yeah, I mean they wanted him and they
gave up
it. So
they gave up quite a bit for him.
Yeah. As I go through the draft, a lot of guys, there's still a lot of good guys on the board. Day 2 is usually my favorite day of the draft. I think in this year, second and third round has a lot of really good players that are still there. I said this on Twitter the other day, and Mike, I'll go to you next. To me, I'm a little sick of the narrative that this isn't a good draft. It might not be top heavy. I don't think there are blue chip prospects. This is not Larry Fitzgerald coming out of Pitt in 2003. This isn't, Darrelle Revis coming out at 14 from the same school. But to me, I feel like in day 2, you're still going to get a lot of good players here. And that's where I feel like maybe some of the, I don't want to say casual fans, but maybe people who don't study it as much as we do would say, I think today, round 2 and 3, I think you're still going to get a lot of good starters. To Steve's point, I think across the board in different positions, I think there's still some good players available.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're the New England Patriots, you're looking at day 2 as an opportunity in rounds 2 and rounds 3 to really upgrade some of your skill positions, really beef up your defense. I mean, you could go in a number of different directions. There's a ton of talent still left in the secondary right now. When I'm looking at players that are still available and names that are just leaping off the page at this point, it really does lend itself in. So, yeah, I know we'll get to the second round and the third round in just a moment. I don't want to, again, overstep here, but I think there's actually a great deal of promise and a great deal of excitement that should still be in Patriots fans right now, because I do believe that that's going to move forward. But when it comes to Shedeur, just to get back to that for one moment, because there was a meteoric fall, let's face it. Shedeur definitely thought he was going in the first round. I don't think there's any question about it. He believed he was a top 10 pick. And all of the hype coming into this said that he was. I find it a little disingenuous to see media members out there kind of celebrating at the fact that this kid fell out of the first round. There's still a tremendous amount of talent, but I think this goes back to something I said last week, in that this draft is going to be a little bit different than drafts that we've seen in years past, because like you said, Derek, you're seeing teams draft for need, draft for fit. All of these things are coming into fruition. You're not necessarily just seeing teams leap over themselves to get the best player available. They want starters, and they want specifically starters that are going to be able to start for their team. And I think that's what you saw players, and that's what you saw teams do last night. They went after guys that they can see being an asset to their organization for a number of years to come. So before anybody starts celebrating and saying that, oh, the fall is because of this or because of that, no, I think it's because of natural fit within the organization. I think you hit the nail right on the head. This didn't become a shocking thing to me until the Steelers bypassed him. And then you start to take a look at the type of team that the Steelers are building and the type of offense they're going to be running. And you're looking at it and saying, okay, is Shedeur really the best fit for a Steelers team right there? Or are they going to try to assimilate him into an area that's going to give him trouble and give him struggle in the NFL? He'll be off the board pretty quickly on night 2. I'm pretty sure of that. We'll see where he ends up. And I still think he has a bright NFL future. But for anyone celebrating about character or anything like that, I would definitely take a stronger look at the reasons why this happened being more football related than anything else.
Yeah, I think with Shedeur, I think I totally agree with everything you said. I think with Shedeur, the biggest thing for me, this is just my opinion, I think he seems like someone who has a relatively high floor. I just don't think most teams saw the ceiling, and I think that was validated last night, because otherwise he would have been taken, right? I mean, absolutely.
A lot of quarterback-hungry teams passed on him, so you can't deny that.
Honestly, the Steelers shocked me. I couldn't. well, I'm sitting there. I'm having dinner with my wife and my one of my best friends and his girlfriend, and we're just hanging out. And I'm sitting there being like, I can't believe he's gonna fall right into their lap. And they passed on him anyways. And traditionally, I would say the Steelers, they're kind of like the Packers. They take offensive linemen or defensive front seven players first, and they take their skill positions in the second round.
Right.
But then the Packers shocked me by taking Matthew Golden, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, to me,
Yep.
you have Romeo Doubs, you have Jalen Reed, Christian Watson was a second round player for them, who the Patriots were linked to a couple of years ago. He's been dealing with hamstring issues, and then they ended up taking Matthew Golden, which I think they said it was the first receiver they've taken in 22 or 23 years. Whenever Javon Walker was taken, from the draft. So that to me was one of the biggest surprises. I couldn't be, that to me was kind of surprising. Steve, any surprises from you that we haven't mentioned yet?
No, because like I said, I thought all the teams made really good choices last night.
Yeah.
Going through, I know we studied the board, and the players might not have matched up exactly where we had them going, and they never do.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many variables involved in there. But overall, I thought it was a really good first round for everybody. You can't sit there and point a finger, like I said earlier, at one team saying, what were they thinking about?
Yep.
I just thought it was, and again, going back to what Daniel Jeremiah said, this was a starter type draft. And
correct.
And I think all the teams got the guys they were looking for at that particular moment. And it just makes round 2 and 3 tonight going to be even more, intriguing, because I think in the Patriots, I mean, in their perspective, right, looking at it through their eyes, there's a ton of guys that are still out there that can really help you in rounds 2 and 3. And, they're going to be available.
Yeah, no, 100%. Any thoughts? I guess additional thoughts, I should say, on Will Campbell, Mike or Steve. Any thoughts on anything you want to add to that conversation?
I mean, he's going to be the left tackle at day one. I mean, when the season starts, he's going to be your starting left tackle. Yep. And that's what they've needed. I mean, they've addressed left and right tackle, like you said. Michael Onwenu is entrenched at, your right guard. They brought in Garrett Bradbury for center. That still might be up for grabs, but he's been a long-time starter in the NFL. I can't envision him not winning the job. And then right now we're just looking at a left guard, and they do, as you mentioned, Derek, they have a lot of guys already there. Whether or not one can step up and, OTAs and training camp this year, we'll see.
What about you, Mike? Any other thoughts on Will Campbell before we move on to the second round?
No, I mean, if I'm quoting my good friend Thomas Murphy, who says, you are the rock, and on this rock I will build my offensive line, that's Will Campbell right now. That's essentially what you're looking at. He is going to be the cornerstone of that O-line for many years to come. Onwenu is definitely someone that is entrenched at the guard position, but these youngsters that are going to come in now and play right tackle after Morgan Moses has gone on to greener pastures, or after Bradbury has yielded that center position, they're going to look to Will Campbell for leadership. They're going to look to him to be the guy that's going to keep everything together. And I think they've got a guy in that locker room that can do it. Based on everything I've heard out of LSU, this is a kid that has captain written all over him. And obviously you won't have it in year one, maybe not even in year two, but it won't be long before you're talking about Will being a captain on this team, at least in my estimation.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay, I do have one negative comment about him.
Please do.
His suit
me, I love negativity. So
his suit last night Looked like he was an extra in Johnny Dangerously.
Well, Steve, I mean, I think you're aging yourself because, you know, in these days fashion, I thought he looked
No,
pretty short.
I'm just kidding. But I did. It did strike me as that when I saw the suit. I was like, man, it looks like he could
I
be
can
in-
understand. I can understand whether it's, you know, Murph talking about Kelvin Banks, whether it's somebody wanting, you know, a couple other players. I can understand, you know, people's admiration for some of these prospects. But to me, when Will Campbell was on the stage, and he's talking with, I forget her name. Not to be disrespectful. I don't remember
Jamie
her name.
Erdahl.
Yeah, when she was on the stage interviewing Campbell, and he talked about just and I know I shared the comment from Joel, and we've talked about it, but like when she said that, or when he said that, you know, he was getting choked up, obviously taking in, it's a huge moment for him and his family, and he talked about he's ready to fight or die for Drake May. I was ready to run through a friggin' brick wall. So I was like, yep, this is the guy. No question. So first round, obviously, again, some intrigue, some twists, but I would say less than most years. Second round, you're going into it as the Patriots, and I still think there's a lot of really good players on the board. Again, day two, with second and third round picks, I could see them going running back. I could see them going receiver. I could see them going tight end. I could see them double dipping at tackle, or offensive line, somewhere in there. I could also see edge rusher in there. So, Mike, I'll go to you next. What do you see for the Patriots at 38? What do you think they do?
Well, I think the big name out there that everyone's looking at right now is Luther Burden. He seems to be the consensus top receiver left on the board. This kid is explosive. He would consistently give the New England Patriots, at least in theory, that deep threat that they've been looking for, and someone that can really stretch the field for Drake May. I know a lot of people have brought up some issues, concerns about his buy-in to football, character issues, things like that. From what I'm hearing, I don't think that'll be a problem with Luther Burden. I think he'll come in and be a solid pro no matter where he is. One
He
player I
reminds me a
don't think
lot,
is...
Mike. Not to cut you off, but
No, go
he
ahead.
does remind me a lot of Stephon Diggs, and Stephon Diggs right now we
Exactly.
think is kind of a 1 year. It's kind of a 1 year deal. Now there's been some character concerns. Again, I always preface what I say about character or personality or whatever you want to classify it as, and medicals, as Steve and I have said for 10 years now, we've been doing this, is that it's impossible to know unless you're actually in that building.
Right.
Like, that's not something that we can know. So, but to me, he comes out like a guy that's gonna I mean, he looks like a player to me. He looks like a flashy little toy that they could go ahead and use. And if they go ahead and shore up the left side of the line like they did with Will Campbell, you add Burden, now you're kind of cooking with gas.
Oh, absolutely, without any question. I mean, there's no question about this kid's on-field potential. The sky's the limit, I think, with Luther Burden. He'll be an excellent receiver in this league, no matter where he ends up, and especially with a quarterback like Drake May, who knows how to feed a guy like this the ball. It's a really hand-in-glove fit. So, do the Patriots do it? Do they, make this move? Pats fans will love it. There's no question about it. If they don't, I think one guy that should be getting maybe an additional look that I don't see an awful lot of draft pundits pushing the Patriots' way, and that is Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. I think this kid is another. I think this kid is another wide receiver that has the ability to play in multiple areas on the field. Great speed. He has that burst, but he's also someone that can drop in and play in the slot if he needs to. If Josh McDaniels' offense reverts back to what we're used to seeing from a Josh McDaniels offense and seeing multiple slot weapons kind of go off on teams, Jalen Noel is a guy that can do it. So he might not be a bad consolation prize if the New England Patriots decide to go there. So keep your minds open when it comes to what they're expecting. You mentioned running back. Obviously, Travion Henderson is going to be someone that's going to, warrant an awful lot of eyes in the early part of day two on night two, this evening. If they choose to go in the interest of edge rushers, yeah, there were a couple of good ones. One of them happens to be a very short drive from where they're playing right
Yeah.
now, and that's Boston College's Donovan Izaraku. I mean, this kid right now reminds me so much of a younger Harold Landry with a tremendous upside. I'd love to see what he can do in a Patriots defense. Nick Scorton of Texas A&M is another one that I'd be watching very closely. So
Yep.
these are some of the names out there right now. And I mentioned earlier that there's still so much depth on this secondary. Will Johnson is still available. Siobhan Rebel Jr. is still available out there. Benjamin Morrison of Michigan is still available as well. So
Who?
keep your eyes out
No,
there.
no, Notre Dame, right?
Oh, Notre
Morrison?
Dame. I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
Morrison is Notre Dame. Yep. Thank you. I apologize
Well,
for that.
no.
But these guys are still out there that right now that are still competing for an opportunity to show off. New England would love to pair a big time corner, I'm sure, with Christian Gonzalez for a number of years to come. You got Carlton Davis in the mix. Why not shore up that secondary and make it one of the most fearsome in the NFL? I think right now the Patriots have so many ways they could go. I'm really looking forward to the start of day two.
Yeah, I think edge rusher is absolutely in play. I think skill positions, running back, tight end, receiver, also in play. Cornerback would be a tiny bit of a surprise, but depending on the value, I mean, and what they want, is going to be interesting. Steve, is there anybody that you have your eyes on for here at 38 or into the third round?
Well, all the guys that Mike just mentioned, because I was going through my own list, which I had all of those guys on there, which that's always good. It means great minds think alike. So right? I like all of those names because I'm thinking to myself, hey, you know, if you want to go wide receiver, there's a couple of really good ones that are going to be there. Couple of really good edge guys. The kid from Boston College, it's just a no-brainer, right?
The
I think
center?
that would, if he's there and they opt to go with him in the second round, I would have zero issue with that. That's for sure.
I would,
And,
I would,
and
I would prefer that was like that would be a third round pick, but I don't think that is out. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying at
right,
38 seems a little rich, but I would prefer them to go with a Travion Henderson, a Luther Burden, someone like a
right,
Mason
because those
Taylor
guys,
that you and I have
they
talked about.
definitely. Well, I don't think as a Raku, and I
I
know
don't
I
think he's
wouldn't.
out of the question. Let's not forget that there's a Vrabel and a Bill O'Brien connection there. That they
Yeah,
have a close relationship. Not only did they kind of cross paths on a couple different times, but Vrabel's kid also played at Boston College, and there is an absolute connection there. I will tell you right now, I will be shocked if they do not take a Boston College player here on day two.
well, that's a good prediction right there. We'll have to
Absolutely.
keep an eye on that tonight. Um, but no, it's like any of these guys. You take a Luther Burden or Noel or Travion Henderson. The two edge guys Mike mentioned, the kid Scorton from Texas A&M. I
Which
mean,
makes a lot of sense too. Which
yeah,
would which would also beef up their front seven even more than they've already done so far. I mean, it'd be fun. I mean, you got to get
yeah.
after the
I,
quarterback.
I wouldn't have issue with any of those guys because I think all of them would step right in and be able to play a role. And I know like a guy like Trevion Henderson in a Josh McDaniels offense. I mean, all you have to do is look through some of the Patriots. I mean,
Yep.
guys like Kevin Falk, Danny Woodhead, Shane Vereen, James White. They all fit the same kind of role he would, and I think he would be a tremendous addition to the Patriots offense, and those guys won't be around in round three. So whoever they falls to them and they take, I think would be a great pick. Um, And then you start getting into round 3, and there's still some good guys out there. One guy we haven't mentioned yet is the tight end from LSU.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mentioned him a second ago, but I know I was kind of ranting and raving. But I mean, Mason Taylor, I think, is absolutely in play.
Yep.
yes, I mean, and you're talking about. Uh, Look, they're set for tight end this year. I mean, they brought back Austin Hooper. They have Hunter Henry.
Hooper, I think, is a 1-year deal, and
Yeah,
I think Henry, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, has 2 years under his
yeah, they
belt
have him for another
here.
2. But hey, bringing in a dynamic, young guy, that's not a bad idea either at tight end. And I think he would still contribute as a rookie. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
Oh yeah.
he might not be a starter per se, but he would still contribute. And again, Josh McDaniels, his track record shows he can find ways to get multiple tight ends involved in the offense.
Mm.
yeah. I mean, and Bill. I know it's not Bill Belichick's team anymore. Okay, but we also understand that he is a PhD in NFL, and one of the things he mentioned, which I always kind of reference, and I feel like it's a really good point. Tight end is one of the hardest positions in the NFL to play because you have to understand the blocking schemes and the blocking roles as well as as well as running routes and obviously catching passes. So it's kind of like it's like you're doing 2 jobs at once. So it's kind of interesting. So and Vrabel, who I obviously played tight end. I think what was he 10 for 10 for catches for touchdowns. I can think he could appreciate that too. I think tight end is something that they'll take. I just don't know if they'll take it in round 2. But I think Mason Taylor's absolutely on the board. I
And
actually
again,
going back to the first round, I was surprised. Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, went above Tyler Warren a little bit.
yep.
But both really good players, kind of different cats. But with Loveland going to the Bears, they have Cole Kmet, who I think came out of Notre Dame a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. He's kind of more of your traditional, like, kind of blocking tight end, catch a couple of passes. Loveland, to me, you can kind of move around, is what they call, like, as Daniel Jeremiah would say, was be like a power slot player.
Mm-hmm.
I think him and Ben Johnson's offense could be really fun. For them. So I think that's exciting. Mike, I guess I don't want to go too long here on the first show, and we'll do another show tomorrow to kind of recap day 2. But if you had to come away, if you're the Patriots front office, you are making the decision right now. Patriots pick at 38. Who's going to be?
I'm going to go with Burden at this point. I think that the talent level is just too high to lay off of. And again, I'm going best player available here. I'm kind of breaking my own rule and saying that you've got to go with the fit. But I think you made a very good case, Derek, and it's something I've been thinking about all week long. If he's there and he has the opportunity to learn from Diggs, and I think Diggs is right now in a position where he wants to impart some of that wisdom and counsel he's developed over the years and really kind of help the younger generation I wouldn't say grow into their greatness, but allow them to be open enough to accept the type of coaching they're going to need to become very good receivers and then be great receivers. I think that talent right now, especially in what he can do with Drake May, is a little too much to lay off of. So I'd go with Luther Burden, but I'm telling you, I'm very, very intrigued by the possibility of bringing in Boston College's Donovan Ezeraku stranger things have happened. But if it were me, I'm going with the Burden at this point.
I like both those names. I think both those names are in play for 38, Steve. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. It's either an edge player or it's maybe a receiver. I love. I've been on a soapbox for Trevion Henderson but Devin Neal from Kansas, RJ Harvey from Purdue. Those guys intrigue me. My thing is the running back class is so deep. To me, you go with an edge player here or a receiver, and then you take one of those guys that falls to you in the 3rd round. What do you think, Steve?
Yes, and look, And again, it's going to depend on
How the board falls.
how the board plays out in front of them. But I think, look, if he's there at 38, I would take Luther Burden, or perhaps Jalen Noel from Iowa State.
Yep.
You know, if the either of if they don't choose to do that, then I would go either Ezeraku from Boston College or Travion Henderson. Then my third round guys, you know, and again, that will depend on how the second round plays out. The third round guys, if he's still there, Mason Taylor would definitely be on my radar.
Yep.
Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee.
Yep.
And
who's the kid from Miami? Arroyo?
Elijah Arroyo.
He's kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's going to be an interesting case study at the end of this draft, is because we heard so much about the depth of the tight end class and the depth of the running back class. Did it cause maybe some of these guys to slip a little further than they should be? Are you getting first, second round talent in round 2, round 3? I think that's going to be very interesting over the course of the next couple of years. It's something I'll be watching closely when they talk about the draft class of 2025. Just
100%, Mike. And I would tell you, I mean, honestly, I feel like that's why this draft is so hard, and why I kind of get annoyed by like the fact that people are calling it a weak class. I think it's a deep class. I just don't think it's top heavy. But that's
Right.
Those are two different things. But we're not going to, obviously, we won't know for 2 or 3 years, because you always have to go ahead and wait a couple of years for these things to kind of play out.
Right.
But to me, I still think there are a lot of really good players here. And as Daniel Jeremiah says, who I have an incredibly great respect for, you know, his evaluation, I think that you still are going to get some starters here. So I think the Patriots are in play here still to get some pretty good starters. So to me, I find that fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. And again, teams fall into this group think, Derek. They look at these two positional groups, where tight ends and running backs, and they say, well, it's a deep class, so I don't have to expunge my energy getting a top of the line guy at that class. There will still be a guy that can either start or contribute majorly to my team that'll be there maybe in round 3 or round 4. Sometimes it allows these guys to slip further than they normally would if they were coming out in other years. So it's going to be very interesting to watch how this class evolves and how it compares to others.
100%. And I know, Mike, you've been on the show for a couple weeks now, and obviously we're starting our inaugural journey here on Patriots No Huddle. But Steve and I, we've mentioned the Iowa State receivers for a while now, and Jaden Higgins makes a lot of sense. But to me, I keep going back to Noel, because I think you mentioned, I think it was you, if it wasn't Steve, mentioned how important it is to Josh McDaniels' offense. We talk about slot receivers. We talk about the receivers that the Patriots have on their team. You have Stephon Diggs. Kendrick Bourne's in the mix. Pop Douglas is there. Jalen Polk, I'm not giving up on. Booty, Javon Baker, I guess we'll kind of see. People are talking about maybe trading Kayshon Boutte. I don't really see what you're going to get. I think that's one of those things that you kind of roll into camp and maybe they get let loose, but that's just my opinion. I still think that you could add someone like Noel, and that puts Pop probably right around the 4th receiver, which I think is a really good spot for him. Because I still think he's a good player. I do love Pop Douglas. I do. But is he your premium kind of slot, quote unquote, receiver? And in McDaniel's offense, we've seen that so often, which is why I keep going back to Noel. I see Travion. To me, it's Travion Henderson. It's Ezeraki from Boston College at the edge player, or it's Noel from Iowa State. Those are the 3 players that I'm keeping my biggest eye on for 38.
Yeah, very good. I'm intrigued by all of them. And again, that's what makes, I think, day 2 really the gem of the draft, because you're really looking at so many possibilities in guys that could come in and end up being high-level starters, or guys that could come in and end up being, how shall we say, less than enamorable when it comes to the fan base and the front office. So, yeah, all different possible ways that this could go tonight.
Less than enamorable is not easy for me to say, apparently. Would be a great way to put it. Let's go final thoughts, gentlemen. Any final thoughts? Steve, I'll go to you first.
Well, for all of our longtime listeners, we just did a rebrand, and that's why you're seeing the new name, Patriots No Huddle. We're hoping to be able to bring more to you on a weekly basis, maybe a couple of short podcasts here and there.
Yep.
And, we're looking forward to some changes here, and, we're still going to provide some great content. And now that Mike is, a part of the Three Stooges here, we're going to have some great conversations. So we hope everyone can stick with us through this, and we're going to try to make this thing grow.
I'm just wondering if I'm low or curly here. I wonder if
I'm supposed to sell teeth. Spread out.
Anyways,
you chuckleheads.
really, really, really excited to start this Patriots No Huddle podcast. Mike, so happy to have you on. I know this is going to be a really fun venture for us. Us all. Tomorrow we'll be back with another podcast to kind of go ahead and recap day 2. Really exciting for both of us. Again, if everyone could please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and please, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcast, like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high on those rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. For Mike Diabate, Steve Balestrieri, I'm Derek Havens, and we will see you guys tomorrow.